All right. So good evening, everyone. It's so great to have all these people here from the community. My name is Roy. I go by he, him, and I'm one of a few graduate students at Columbia University that is part of this amazing collaboration with Wheels, Friends of Wheels, and the New York Restoration Project. And today we're gonna showcase some of the high school students who are gonna present their amazing research. But before we get to that, just a couple of Zoom etiquette rules as we all get situated to start with. So please, if you go to the little bubbles by your video, please add your name. You can rename and add your affiliation. So for me, it's Columbia University and your pronouns. Please remain muted unless you're speaking. And if you want to ask questions or something, please use the chat tool. Reactions, if you want to silently applaud the students, which we will all definitely be applauding them all through this evening. And please try to keep distractions to a minimum. And we'd love to see all of your faces. So if you can, please turn your camera on. And yeah, and so I just want to give a quick overview of what we're doing this evening. So this community forum is going to focus on this amazing environmental justice and urban ecology research that the high school students have been doing for the last 6 weeks. And so what we're going to be seeing is we're going to be seeing a showcase of original research done for 6 weeks by the students. We're going to hear from Friends of Wheels about the Clean Air Green Corridor. We're going to hear from our partners across the board, and we'll get to hear the undergraduate student leaders, Jada and Musab, who've been leading this research program throughout the summer and have done an amazing job. And so there'll be a few presentations, short presentations, and we'll have a question and answer session at the very end. So if you have any questions at any point, please write them down or remember them, and we will get to them at the end. And again, applaud silently with all the emojis and all the stuff, or in the chat, please feel free. And so I'm gonna now transition over to Molly, who's gonna talk. And before I just wanna thank our community partners, Friends of Wheels. We're members of the Ecology, Evolution, Environmental Biology Department at Columbia University, the New York Restoration Project, as well as our funders at the Earth Institute and Lamont Observatory, Columbia University Center for Science and Society, and the EPA, who have all been supporting all these students throughout the summer, which has been awesome. So now I'm just gonna hand it over to Molly to talk about Friends of Wheels.
Hi, welcome, and thank you so much for being here with us on this hot evening. I think it's apropos. We can definitely make the connections between climate change and environmental justice and the work that our incredible students have done this summer. Thank you to all of our partners. I'm the executive director for Friends of Wheels. My name is Molly Delano. I'm thrilled to be here with you. A few quick notes, and then I'll pass the mic. We have important work to hear about from our students this evening. Lots of incredible research and hopefully time to hear questions and have a conversation. Friends of Wheels amplifies youth and community power by inspiring, guiding, and advocating for youth to determine their college, career, and leadership futures. For us, environmental justice work and youth leadership are not a separate part of college access, they're part of college access. And that's what the corridor work has been showing. Huge shout out and appreciation to our fabulous Genesis Youth Environmental Leadership Program Manager. We are so thankful for your leadership and work, and you'll get to hear from our students and a few alum very soon. Thank you so much.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Pallavi Kache. I'm a PhD student in the Department of Ecology, Evolution, and Environmental Biology at Columbia University. And I've been a part of a small group of graduate students who have been working to kind of facilitate some of the research projects that you'll hear about. And we're just really excited to have been a part of such an awesome collaboration. So I'll just give a little bit of an overview of our department. And so our department's mission is to educate a new generation of scientists and practitioners in theory and methods of ecology, evolution, and environmental biology. And one kind of theoretical approach that we explore as a department is understanding how people and nature interact and are inherently linked to one another in urban settings and cities. And so you can't really separate the people from the natural component like trees and the biodiversity from how humans are interacting with those organisms. And so I think, sorry, if you'll go to the next slide. I think a framework that has really resonated with a lot of graduate students in the department explores how systemic biases like racism and classism affect a lot of different processes in cities, ranging from urban heat island to green spaces and how resources are distributed in cities. And so ultimately, like many of the ecological and evolutionary processes within cities are driven by these systemic biases. And that's something that we really want to explore and understand and ultimately and find solutions, community-driven solutions to try to mitigate those negative impacts. So that's just kind of where we're coming from in terms of kind of sharing our understanding of ecological processes with a lot of the kind of fundamental and very important work that Friends of Wheels does in the racial justice and environmental justice space. So with that, I'll turn it back over. Thanks.
Now, May and Noelia are gonna talk a little bit about the Clean Air Green Corridor.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marilyn Lantigua, and I am a rising sophomore at Ithaca College, currently studying culture and communications with a minor in Spanish. I am also a Wheels alumni, class of 2020. So our community of Inwood and Washington Heights is mainly a low-income Latinx immigrant Spanish-speaking community where asthma, diabetes, and cancer rates are extremely high. On top of this, environmental issues, COVID-19, and on top of these environmental issues and COVID-19 has increased food and housing insecurities, unemployment, and even over-policing, especially in Black and Brown youth. We are struggling to breathe. Clean air is an urgent issue in our neighborhood of Washington Heights. According to the Community Air Survey, in 2016, our community was among the New York City neighborhoods with the poorest air quality. This is not surprising, given that the George Washington Bridge, the Henry Hudson Parkway, the Harlem River Drive, and the I-95 all bring substantial car traffic through our neighborhood. On this slide, we have a map, and in red, we can all see the polluting sites and facilities in our neighborhood and how close they are to Wheels. Next slide. During my time at Wheels, with the support of Mr. Eric Espin and Dr. Jared Fox, and with my peers, Diane, Ricardo, Alan, Mia, Susana, and Diego, we founded the Clean Air Green Corridor, a Black and Brown youth-led community initiative rooted in Washington Heights, reimagining possibilities for all public space. We build and advocate for increased access to beautiful and healthy places to live, learn, work, and play. It all started back in 2017. Our school, the Washington Heights Expeditionary Learning School, a New York City outward bound school, ran a week-long elective called Restoring Highbridge, where students learn about the history and importance of green space, the neglect and the underutilization of Highbridge Park, and the systematic barriers to green space in our neighborhood. We became energized, and now 200 more students later have developed the Clean Air Green Corridor. Now I'll pass it on to Noelia.
Hello everyone, my name is Noelle Martinez. I'm a rising junior at Wheels. As a youth leader, we are working to provide 100,000 plus people safe, healthy, and equitable access to the Harlem River, otherwise off limits, and Highbridge Park. our anchor park. We are working to connect the dots between youth leadership and community advocacy, education, equity, and climate justice in Washington Heights. It's important to note and highlight that there are 5 other schools on 182nd. This work will not only benefit our school wheels, but also other students in our neighborhood. The Cleaner Green Quarter focuses on ideas that inspire change and promote environmental justice. We will have created a clean and green corridor from Broadway to Highbridge Park, where all students can walk to school safely and enjoy school activities outside.
Riley, I think we lost your audio for a second there. Am I the only one?
Anti-gentrification, anti-displacement framework. Next slide. We are remaking 182nd. We mulched 17 tree beds with support of the with NYRP, installed tree guards on the block with the support of the club Allure, and we cleaned up our school gardens. We organized and participated in street cleanups. We have met with our local community boards and New York City agencies. And through our studies at Wheels and at other schools and summer programs, we continue to learn about air quality and urban heat island in our neighborhood. Next slide. By the time I graduate from Wales in 2023, we will have created a clean and green corridor from Broadway to Highbridge Park where all students can walk to school safely and enjoy school activities outside. Along the clean and green corridor, there will be more trees, green roofs, and cars, and trash cans where we can have a healthier, greener community for all people. All young people, regardless of their zip code or social and economic circumstances, should be able to go to school in a healthy and green community. We want other young people throughout NYC to learn about our work and realize that they can do the same for the school and their communities and inspire change.
Oh, thank you so much to Noelia and May for sharing your experiences and aspirations. My name is Musa Brahma. I'm a current undergraduate at Columbia University in the E3B department. And my colleague, Jada.
Hi, I'm Jada. I'm also an undergraduate at Columbia University.
We are going to talk about just the Environmental Justice and Urban Ecology Summer Research Program, what it entailed, as well as its connection to the Clean Air Green Corridor Initiative. So if we go to the next slide, we can see that you can see that we used a near-peer mentoring structure for the program and had our PhD students and Friends of Wheels folks as administrators. We, meaning me and Jada, were the near-peer mentors and were the main resource and point of contact for students. The programming mentorship model entailed PhD students working with us, the undergraduate mentors, and high school students to design a research program. Then we spent the majority of the time in the program with our high school researchers and bridged the gap between the PhD students and the high school students. You know, the PhD students are a little on the older side. Our PhD mentors worked with high school staff to ensure that the curriculum and research fits within the school's objectives for student learning. And the administrative staff coordinates logistics and funding with PhD mentors to ensure that undergraduates and the high school students are sufficiently supported.
So the main goal of this program was to give these students the background knowledge and resources they would need to identify and analyze the environmental injustices they experience on a day-to-day basis. So we also aim to introduce them to the wonders of science and all the exciting things that science can do for them and their communities. Understanding not only how they impact their environment, but also how the environment impacts them is a crucial cornerstone of this program. And we're so beyond proud of all the students who've been involved in this program for engaging in scientific thinking and reasoning and becoming such exceptional community scientists. So if you go to the next slide, I can talk about how we began this program 6 weeks ago by introducing the students to basic scientific concepts like biology, chemistry, and urban ecology as a whole. And then we went out into the street where the school is located to identify different green spaces like community gardens or Highbridge Park itself, and gray spaces like construction zones and the streets and infrastructure. And we highlighted the importance of street trees while doing that and how they can absorb heat produced by the urban heat island effect and also just provide shade to community members. So if you click the next slide, you can see how students have engaged in so much field work. We be out in the field 3 to 4 times a week, either doing vegetation monitoring in Highbridge Park or water quality testing and measurements in Sherman Creek. And the students were able to connect very intimately with the organisms in their environment, and they were able to experience ecosystem services that the environment provides. So here on the screen, you can see they've engaged with things like a redback salamander that they discovered while being out in the field, which was really cool. So it was all very exciting getting to connect with nature in that way.
So you might be wondering, how does the WHEELS Environmental Justice and Urban Ecology Summer Program, it's a bit of a mouthful of a program, so you can call it WJAR for short, connect to the Clean Air Green Corridor. Like the Clean Air Green Corridor, it's a community-based youth-led initiative. Students are stakeholders in the community's health, and by participating in community-based science, so they go out and do the data collection, they do these projects, it demystifies research and makes the act of doing science for the benefit of the whole community easier. By applying the principles and information that students have learned through the program, it allows them to strengthen their arguments supporting advocacy for initiatives like the Clean Air Green Corridor. So if we go on to the next slide, we can see that science, that community-based science in action. Highbridge is a historically neglected and inaccessible park, despite being one of the largest parks in the Heights. Aside from being shut down for decades until recently, many entrances to the park close to community schools have been fenced off for years and still are. Therefore, when students from the community do their research here, not only are they gathering data as pictured to advocate for the restoration and addition of green spaces, they're also reclaiming it for themselves to exist in, as it is their right to enjoy, like their peers from neighborhoods that have not been affected negatively by historic redlining policies. We can continue to the next slide.
So through air quality research, we gained access through using the purple air sensor that's actually on wheels. Thank you, Dr. Fox, for all that wonderful research. We were able to compare that to the field research that the students collected using the devices they had with them that monitored air quality and air temperature. And we found that green spaces most definitely reduce the urban heat island effect. And over the summer, Highbridge Park was actually on an average 20 to 30 degrees cooler than Wheels and the streetscape. So that's a huge difference. And we definitely felt that while walking on the street to the park, just like that difference of like 100 degrees to 70 degrees under the shade of the forest. And that was a huge breakthrough for not only the program, but just the students to see how important green spaces really are.
So pictured here are images of the before and after from the New York Restoration Project's efforts to make Highbridge a cleaner, safer, more accessible green space. Not only has their work in restoration been amazing for Highbridge, the park, but they've also been an invaluable research for our program, by providing us with space to do research and information on the ecology and the history of Highbridge. So thank you to NYRP for that. And talking about restoration and students, that sort of leads us to our main event, our student presentations. We're going to start with a wonderful presentation on the biodiversity in Highbridge Park, and we can get into it.
Welcome, everyone. Good evening.
Woohoo!
Thank you all for coming. My name is May.
My name is Belly.
And my name is Sherman.
And today we're going to be presenting our studies centered around Highbridge Park.
To start off, we're gonna talk about the history of Highbridge Park first. A fun fact is that Highbridge Park is actually one of the oldest parks in New York City, as well as the bridge. It is the oldest park in New York City, actually. And even though Highbridge Park was always here, it didn't always get the attention it gets today. The attention is little, yes, but it used to be even worse with being closed for over 45 years. Highbridge Park didn't open until 2015, and this year it has been the cleanest it's been in a long, long time. Since it's been neglected for so long, it's really hard to access, as we noticed through walking through the park. And it's important for low-income communities to have such green spaces. So that's why we really want to help clean it up.
So the importance of our research. So let's start with, what is biodiversity? It is the amount of variety of life on Earth, meaning different species of plants, animals, and microorganisms. So the more different plant species there are, the more biodiversity there is. And how does biodiversity help ecosystems? Plants use photosynthesis to capture carbon dioxide from the atmosphere to create oxygen, which is good, plant pollination, and pest control. The ecosystem services the forest provides is people having access to green space, and it also creates a cooling space by providing shade, and having access to food and water is very important for the organisms living there. And it's also very beautiful. Look at it, it's so beautiful.
Here we have just some more biodiversity showing how pretty Highbridge Park is. There's still a lot we don't know about Highbridge Park, but when we see, of course, there's a lot of diversity, and there could be more to come. So, yeah. Though there is a lot of diversity, there can also be things that we may also not want, such as invasive trees. Diversity can be influenced by competition. Plants compete for water, nutrients, and light. Invasive trees, like the normal maple, through competition, can take up space and make it hard for other plants, like native plants, to grow. So it just takes over everything. And we don't really want that, obviously.
Other things that affect the health of plants apart from species are things like soil. Soil has different things like clay, minerals, and even organisms can be part of it. Depending on the amount of these things, the way we label soil is affected. Moisture is the amount of water the soil is holding, and compaction is the density of the soil when pressed together. Moisture will have an impact on trees because soil is the source of water for trees since they absorb it from the roots. The compaction of the soil will impact the trees because if it's too dense, the roots of the trees will not be able to grow and expand through it. A more specific topic when talking about soil moisture is aquifers, which is a natural water preserve below ground that are accessed by plant roots since they are the only thing long enough to get there. The way these preserves refill is when rains, the water is guided by tree roots. The biology of the soil is the living organisms found in it, and the bacteria and fungi decompose things into carbon and matter, and like that carbon and nitrogen go into the soil. Plant roots are the main source of carbon for organisms, and that's why so many of them are found near the roots. And microinvertebrates make a home in the soil and use it for safety.
So the following slides will focus around these two questions. Do plots with more invasive trees have lower understory diversity? And how do soil conditions affect plant diversity? Before we keep going, let's break down some of the terms that will be mentioned repeatedly throughout the presentation. Invasive canopies refer to plants that are restricting vegetation of other plants. Our group wanted to study the impacts of invasive canopies on understory diversity, which refers to the underlying layers of various kinds of vegetation. In connection to the underlying layer of canopies, our group also wanted to explore the impact soil has on the plant diversity. So for our hypotheses, for our null hypotheses, the number of invasive canopy trees has no effect on the understory diversity.
There will be no difference in biodiversity based on the moisture and temperature of the soil.
And our alternative hypotheses are the more invasive canopy trees there are, the less understory diversity.
And for the second question, the diversity will increase along with moisture and temperature of the soil.
Now we move on to showing where the measurement taking takes place. Here we have a map of Highbridge Park showing the plots that we go to, the unplanted plots versus the planted plots. Something we've noticed about the planted plots is that it's much easier to go through, while the unplanted parts seem more abandoned, and it's really hard to like walk through and try to measure the trees there. But because of NYRP's hard work, we are able to access some of these plots, and it was much easier to do it there. Here we have the independent versus dependent variables. The independent variables being the DBH, so how thick the tree may be, the tree health, looking at the tree count, we could identify that. The tree species will tell us if it's native or invasive, and we measure all this using the tools you see on the side. Very cool. And yeah, those are the independent. For the understory, you can see here that the PVC pipe right in the middle, that would be the center of the plot. So we will only measure the understory when it's 2 meters. Anything more than that would be, we wouldn't measure that. And the measurements that we take are the soil moisture, the soil temp, soil compaction, air quality, understory diversity. And we would take this data 2 to 3 times a week.
And this is us taking measurements in the field. As you can see on the left, we have George Long, taking down some data for us. And in the middle, you have the students measuring the tree size, identifying species, and measuring the crown health, whether it's healthy or is not healthy. And on the right, you have Leo and Amaya looking at the understory diversity measurements. Results.
Based on the data that we have collected, soil moisture leads to an increase in biodiversity. Every dot in the graph is a plot with a line of best fit showing the trend. And the R squared is showing a scale from 1 to 0, showing how good the trend line fits the data and how strong the correlation between each measurement fits. The graphs we made also show us that there is a small correlation between the increase of soil temperature and an increase in biodiversity as well. The amount of invasive species drastically drastically made the amount of the biodiversity in the understory diversity decrease. The New York Restoration Project has worked on parts of the park, but as of now, they have now worked on some areas of it. And the areas that have been worked on, the biodiversity has increased by a lot in comparison to the ones that haven't been worked on.
So these are motion sensor images that we set camera traps in all 4 plots. And since we're talking about biodiversity, you can see the different animal species. So we caught like raccoons, we caught a squirrel, we caught, us, of course. So it's a lot going on, and just look at it, appreciate it.
Now that we are reaching the end of our presentation, I'm sure you have lots of questions. Like, how does this all connect? How about we start with, how does this all connect to environmental justice? In a low income community, we have a lot of gray spaces, such as like industrial spaces, just things that cause pollution, and like the highway. It's really important to have access to green space like Highbridge, which, wait, sorry. Since we have all these great gray spaces, it's really important to have access to a green space like Highbridge, which studies show improve our physical and mental health. Green spaces thrive when there is diversity in the forest. It's important to know how soil conditions, like more moisture, allow for more diversity. And it's also important to know the health of trees because trees impact understory diversity. We want our research on the importance of this green space to put pressure on city officials and park departments so they can get more funding to clean up the park and increase access.
So personally, it's been a very long time since I've been into Highbridge Park, and for this internship, I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to access it again. During this internship, I felt much more connected to the park, and I was far more appreciative of the green space. And I'm hoping that once the park is open, that people in the community feel the same way I did being in the park, because we all need it.
We have noticed that the neighborhoods we had gone were not in the same good conditions of the parks, since we simply focus on the green spaces. This made me realize that planting plants and making research is just the surface of fixing these issues. And while green spaces are a huge part of neighborhoods, they are not the whole neighborhood.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you guys so much for that wonderful and very thorough presentation. You guys have done such incredible hard work, and we're very proud of you. So we're going to move on to group 2, who's going to introduce their study of water quality.
Hello, everyone. So glad to be here. My name is Noelia. I'm a rising junior, as I said earlier. Yeah, I just wanted to say that the other group is so good. Yeah, I'm like kind of jealous of them, but okay. So I'll be introducing us today. Amaya, you can go introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Amaya. I am a rising junior like Noelia. I'm excited to be presenting this today.
Hi, my name is Andrew, and my pronouns are he, him, and I'm going to 10th grade. Now I'm happy to present this project.
And my name is you, and I'm up here, him, and I'm on 2021 graduate.
Hello, my name is Isabel. I'm going to 10th grade and I'm happy to present this project.
Study of water quality. So our context of our research is going to be, so throughout the 6 weeks of summer research on Harlem River, we have discussed topics such as environmental injustice in Washington Heights, specifically relating to CSO pollution on water quality. Today we'll go over what CSOs are, the CSOs near us, the ones that are disposing of higher levels of sewage, and lastly, what this research can mean for our water quality. Next slide. Pollution in New York City waterways. At least 27 billion gallons of raw sewage are discharged every year. On the slide, you can see there's a clip here of sewage being discharged, and I find it very ironic that today, right before our group presented, there's a storm outside, as you guys heard on the Zoom. So just imagine how much sewage is going into our water system right now as we speak and make this presentation. Next slide. Although water quality in New York Harbor and the Hudson River has been improved, there's still a major problem with the sewage that is releasing harmful bacteria, viruses, and parasites into our rivers. On this graph, it demonstrates how the levels of bacteria have went down over the years, especially when you look at 2018, the levels of bacteria are pretty low, but they're not low enough because they're still surpassing that red line, meaning that it's still unsafe to go in this water quality and like be around it. Next slide.
So, before the creation of combined sewer systems in 1855, waste was dealt with by dumping it onto the streets and rivers. Consequently, this resulted in many problems like epidemics and unsanitary conditions. Improper sewage disposal caused diseases like cholera and typhoid to rise. Next slide, please. The majority of waterfront and beaches are unsafe because of outmoded sewer systems combining building sewage with stormwater entering harmful rivers. The sewage adds more nitrogen and bacteria, which harms the water quality. And as you see on the slide, the picture to your left shows a dry weather. And as you see, rain enters the storm drain, separating the sewage and water, letting it exit through the outfall pipe. However, in heavy rainfall, both the water and the sewage combine, letting it exit through the outfall pipe, which is not what we want. That is very, very bad. Next one.
So this is the CSOs in New York City. So this map from 2018 shows all of the CSOs located near Washington Heights and Inwood. So if you look at it closely, you can see near Washington Heights right there and Inwood. And in total, there's 233 CSOs near us. Next slide, please. Here we are looking at the volumes of discharge that are constantly flowing through the Harlem River. Notice how the Harlem River has the highest disposing waste percentages. Next slide, please.
And this is our research question. How does pollution from CSOs affect levels of bacteria in the Harlem River? Our null hypothesis expects CSO's pollution does not affect the levels of bacteria in the Harlem River. However, our alternative hypothesis, we expect CSOs would affect the levels of bacteria.
Why is our question important for ecosystem services and environmental justice? Combined sewage overflow carries off nasty sewage water. As a result, it begins to mix in with city waterways and rivers. City waterways follow drinking water, bathing water, water that we, as the people, use. This is our study site. We measured water quality 4 points along the Harlem River throughout the summer.
What we have here are our independent variables. So they are turbidity and dissolved oxygen, dissolved inorganic nitrogen, which we call DIN. And we have bacteria levels, fecal enterococcus. Next one.
And the nitrogen method we used was collecting samples first and then measuring the nitrate and ammonia with ion selective electrode. Next slide, please. What have we measured for water quality was salinity to measure the levels of salt in the water. Turbidity is the cloudiness of the water. The bacteria can stick to the sediment. pH measures the acidity in a substance. We also measured dissolved oxygen, which is important for aquatic life.
Methods. We collected samples of bacteria in a bottle and brought it to the lab, heated it up and incubated for 24 hours. And we looked at it under the UV light to see if it reflects back.
Now we have results. And the graph you see here, we actually made them ourselves using the data we collected in Google spreadsheets, which was pretty cool to do. And this one you see here is the relationship between fecal indicator bacteria and turbidity. On the left side, you see that there are it counts as higher bacteria counts. So the cloudier the water, the more bacteria there is. On the right side, there are less bacteria counts. So the clearer the water, the less bacteria there is. And as you see, that blue line right there is our linear trend, which shows how cloudier the water has more bacteria.
Next.
Next one. And right here, it shows the relationship between fecal indicator bacteria and dissolved inorganic nitrogen. The higher the nitrogen, the more bacteria there is. The lower the turbidity, the less bacteria there is.
Solutions to CSO pollution. Limiting water usage on a rainy day can help lower sewage entering the Harlem River. In collaboration with the Clean Air Corridor, we visited green roofs which could help reduce stormwater runoff in a city like New York. We are excited to continue our work and potentially have a green roof at Wheels. Based next based on the feedback that we got on our studies that we ran in Sherman Creek, the bacterial levels were very high. And not only that, the dissolved oxygen levels are low. This is a threat to aquatic organisms. Next. Thank you for listening. The end.
Just want to recognize again all the amazing students who just presented. And maybe we can give them a round of applause. Some people can unmute so they can hear our appreciation.
Nice.
Now, Jada and Musab, if you want to lead the question and answer.
Yeah, so if anyone has any questions, you can either raise your hand or just type it in the chat and we can read it out. Yeah, so go for it.
I have a question. What was the most fun part of your experience conducting field research this summer?
Personally, for me, it was just like being able to be so close to the students and seeing them grow into scientists. I feel like crying after this presentation because I am so proud of them. And, you know, like going into this program, like me and Musab, we knew that these kids were like exceptional, super smart, and like totally capable, but just like seeing them kind of like take the reins after we introduced them to the topics and then just like do the stuff by themselves. Like they were collecting water quality and like doing all the lab work by themselves by the end. And it was just like a very incredible thing to see. So yeah, that was very wonderful. I'm very happy for them.
For me, I just enjoyed being in the park and like being connected to the green space, and overall I was very happy being alongside the other corridor members. It was nice to see their perspective and what they had to offer.
For me,
oh, go ahead.
Okay, so like I like Sherman Creek because like there was a lot of stuff to do. and like there was lavender and like mountain mint, and like you can smell them. But there was also this pond, and like there was like different animals in it, and it was fun to do.
Well, for me, I like many things. Like when we were walking through the area, I liked hiking up because I actually ran through the area in boots, and that was really fun. Also, like the pictures we got from the wildlife, we were able to see like different animals, which was so cool because the raccoons, they move very.
Someone asked a question in the chat and they said, why did the multiple agency responsible for parks fail to take care of Highbridge? I think it's because of the funding, since like the government should be able to give us enough money to be able to help the park get planted and restored. Um, since we saw that the restored areas were much more manageable than the unplanted. And even though NYRP has been working really hard, it's still hard to like do that on their own. So yeah.
To add on to what Chris Belli said, the Highbridge Park has a very interesting history. It used to be an illegal car dumping site at one point, as well as an amusement park. And I think what's interesting, something that's great is that we actually do have Jason Smith with us. So from NYRP, and he's been an amazing help with just facts about the ecology and history of the park itself. Jason, if sorry to put you on the spot, but if you're willing at all to just maybe talk about what you think might be partially responsible for the degradation of the park, I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Sure. First of all, I've been really excited to see what you came up with, and it's great to see some results. So I really appreciate it. Great job, everyone. And you know, it's hard for me to answer that question because I'm really like, to be honest, I'm a little too close to it probably. And I really try to emphasize the progress that the park has made recently. And you know, I would say resources is a big part of it. You know, it could use more resources, but I think a lot of it is also a legacy of some land use choices that were made a long time ago, where sections of the park were cut off by highway construction and maybe were really never totally thriving. So they've become, for various reasons, a lower priority to care for. And so some of those issues of like having really inaccessible sections of the park are hard to overcome just with extra money. It really requires, I think, advocating a little bit for not just money, but thinking about changing some of the access, maybe changing some of the highway use so that we can have more pedestrian access to the waterfront, and you know, thinking a little beyond just advocating for resources, which you know, is always great. I think the Parks Department has been really focused on improving Highbridge and made huge strides. So I think we're getting there. I know that maybe not the total answer, but that's off the top of my head. That's how I think about it now.
Thank you so much. That was all great answer. Thank you.
Noelia and Ezekiel, did you guys have something that you wanted to share too about one of the questions from beforehand?
Stalin asked a question like, what do we most enjoy about the summer research internship? And I like wanted to answer. I was thinking one of the things I enjoyed was probably like being productive most of the time during like the internship, because like throughout this whole thing I like got to learn from Columbia graduates who were like also like really nice and have so much to like teach us. And like now I know how to like do all this research that I didn't know how to do before. That was probably one of my favorite things, to continue learning about science and how we can make our community better.
Thank you, Noah. That was beautifully put.
And then Easy, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think everything cool.
Okay, do we have any more questions? I know there's a lot talked about, so there must be questions.
I had some specific questions that are a little more data-ish. Those were awesome presentations, guys. And I was wondering, so you saw raccoons and squirrels and people. Was there anything else you caught in the cameras? And what happened to the bird data? Did you see any differences, or is that to come in the future when you look at that data?
So Musab, if you want to go, you can go.
Oh yeah. We had a lot of plans for this program. This is our first year. We had a lot of aspirations. And it was fantastic to have the experience of birding. We have so much data. It is insane how much we have from just herp hunting, the birding that you led us on, you and Matt and Roy and Pallavi. I actually got a pair of binoculars because I was very inspired. I'm gonna get into birding now. Yeah, I think that we have that bird data, and yeah, there's a future in it. It's got a future of analysis to come. So hopefully we can get a presentation on that someday.
Yeah, and oh, sorry. To answer
no expectations at all to have had that data ready.
Sorry. To answer your first question, we also found like a wild cat on the camera traps, and a possum as well, and a groundhog. Yeah, we saw a few critters, and they were really cool to see.
Thanks, guys. Awesome.
May I ask a question, please?
Yeah, of course.
And I would love to hear from one of our youth leaders who hasn't yet spoken, if possible. It's so amazing to see you all such different ages, right? Different levels of experience with the corridor. Amazing work. I'm smiling with so impressive. Thank you to all of our partners. Thank you so much. I'd love to hear from maybe like one or two of you. Like, what does this research, what does this work get you excited about or make you think about in terms of building the Clean Air Green Corridor? Like, what are you excited to take back into the fall, into the school year?
Go for it, Leandro.
Hold on. I would like to see how it was like before. Like clean rivers. It was just nature. And then you could breathe like more natural air.
Does anyone else have something they want to add to that?
So like every time we took a field trip, we will have like this little history lesson, and like they'll talk about like the process that they made to get to that point, and the like difficult conversations that need to be had about like what species to plant, trees to plant, and like what is needed to like consider something green. And like even though it was a completely different setting, we can still use that information to like use it and like in this neighborhood.
Thank you.
All right, thank you everybody so much for coming today. This was just such a great experience. I'm so proud of our youth leaders for everything they've done. Totally floored by the presentations and all the work. These are our social media tags. You can find us and follow us and continue to see, how this work continues to develop over the next year. And then next slide, please. I also want to invite everybody to our block party tomorrow. It's going to be hot, but it's going to be awesome. Tomorrow from 10 o'clock to 3 at 182nd Street between Amsterdam and Audubon. You can come and hang out, and we're going to all be celebrating all of our hard work from the summer. So please join us. And thank you again to all of our partners on the program. And let's give another huge round of applause to the students.
Amazing work, guys.
Woo! You did so spectacular. I'm so honored to have been like a mentor for you all. Thank you so much for such an amazing experience.